We have 3 guys that are competing for that position right now. All those players are getting better, and it's important for us that all those players get better. I don't think anybody has actually separated themselves yet to this point, and I don't think it's something that we're trying to rush. I used the analogy earlier, you know, Grandma Saban used to bake the best cakes in the world, and I used to stand by the oven when I was a kid and say, when's this cake going to be done? When's this cake going to be done? And she said, if I don't let it go through and take it out of the oven too soon, it's going to turn to mush, so it won't be a really good cake. So I think we got to let this sort of develop and make sure we let the cake bake until somebody separates themselves.
I want to know your favorite cake since you mentioned that in your opening statement.
Yeah, well, carrot cake, that's easy. Look, I talked about expectations before. And we're focusing on how do we develop the players that we have. And we want to develop all the players. You know, everybody wants to know who the starter is. What about the backup guy who has to go in and play? I use the cake analogy because it's not done yet. It's not, there's not a decision that needs to be made at this point in time, nor are we ready to make that decision at this time until somebody separates themselves.
You know, Paul Finebaum doesn't strike me as a human that would enjoy cake. Is that true or false? Do I have that right?
Matt, I have to ask you a question. Nick Saban came to media days to talk about his team, and he started his conversation by talking about his 3-week trip to Italy, and he suggested to a room full of sports writers, you all should consider going there, like anyone in the room, you know, would put that on their bucket list. And then he ended it by talking about carrot cake. What he didn't say was whether this team is going to get back to the playoffs or not, and that's what everybody was really interested in. But it was a fascinating afternoon and morning, I should say, of listening to Coach Saban. He said a lot of things that were fun and interesting, but he really did not address the elephant in the room, is whether Alabama has lost anything, have they fallen a little bit behind, which most people think they have, and whether they can now catch Georgia.
Paul, don't dodge my question. Do you like cake?
I let them eat cake, meaning let you eat the cake. I'll pass.
There you go. All right. That's all I wanted to know. And it was a good first answer, by the way, because you answered the first question by not answering my question. But you did say, look, it is an interesting season in Tuscaloosa because of the quarterback questions. And then Tommy Rees comes in as offensive coordinator. And, you know, we've done this a long time together. You've done this much longer. When's the last time Alabama had this many question marks coming into a season?
You would probably have to go back to 2014, 2015 when Jay Coker came over from Florida State, and he didn't win the job right away. He barely lost the job the previous year to Jameis Winston. And Matt, there are myriad questions about this program. They still have enormous talent. Everyone knows that. Everyone can read the recruiting rankings. They won last year in that. But you have to wonder about the chemistry, and I didn't hear anything from Nick Saban that enlightened me or made me feel better that he's closer to finding a quarterback. And by now, it's not like Tyler Buckner, who came over from Notre Dame, hasn't been seen by the coaches.
Right.
They've seen him. They look out the window and watch what's happening right now. And I think the real question for him is, you know, he probably does not have the time to get the leadership qualities that he needs to command this team. So that makes most people believe that Jalen Milroe will be the first game starter. It's who starts the second game, Matt, against Texas that may help determine the season.
And Paul, somehow Alabama always figures this out, dating back to when Jalen Hurts transferred to Tagovailoa, NFL, Mac Jones, NFL, Bryce Young, NFL. Quarterback position seems to work itself out there at Alabama. But when I look at this team big picture, Georgia's winning back-to-back national championships. LSU won the West last year. They were in the SEC championship. In your mind, where's Alabama now in this SEC pecking order?
Well, I think Alabama is behind Georgia, and you know, Bama fans push back and they tell us how many national championships Alabama's won that, but you do have to wonder about this, and I will give Coach Saban credit. I mean, he did address the disasters of last year, and I say disasters tongue-in-cheek because they still finished 5th in the country, and Saban was banging the drum to try to get in the playoffs. But they melted down against Tennessee. They allowed LSU to score a 2-point conversion to beat them. And And that's what he's referring to. And that was with Will Anderson. He's still got great players. I mean,
Sure.
you'll hear Alabama players 3 or 4 times in the first round of the NFL draft, but will they be cohesive, and will they avoid all the mistakes that they made, and with 2 new coordinators?
Yeah, and I think Dallas Turner, he's going to be that next Will Anderson Jr. He's just a frightening human being playing defense for Alabama, Nick Saban. Now, it wouldn't be an SEC Media Days if Paul Finebaum didn't make a statement that had everyone looking around saying, what's he talking about? You mentioned Saban and his legacy at Alabama. It's year 17. So why, in your estimation, is year 17? Why is this one so important?
Well, let's establish one thing. Nick Saban's legacy is in cement. I mean, he's won 7 national championships, 6 at Alabama. I think the questions about where he is today, though, are legitimate and fair, Matt. And what if Kirby Smart does the unthinkable and wins 3 in a row? Then can you really say that Nick Saban's at the top of the food chain? You cannot. You can't do that fairly. And I thought J.C. Latham, his star player, said today, we're being disrespected. People are talking about the dynasty being over. Well, I think that's fair. That's an edge. And Coach Saban told me earlier that they will do it. They will embrace that. But they're not really used to being in that position. I mean, Alabama's always the prohibitive favorite, Matt. And last year they were nearly a unanimous pick to win it all, as we talked last year from media days.
Yeah, and look, they had the 2 best players in the country, Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., and they couldn't get it done. So it is fair to ask some of these questions. There's Alabama Day at SEC Media Days. Paul, go enjoy your moon pie. We'll talk in a bit.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.